What would you do if the child you found sleeping alone in a park turned out to be yours? One cold November night, a billionaire, feared in boardrooms and frozen in loneliness, found a 9-year-old girl shivering on a bench. She said her mother would be right back, but 5 days had passed, and no one came. What started as a chance encounter soon unraveled into a life-altering revelation, one that would expose buried secrets, forgotten love, and the hidden cost of ambition. This isn't just a story about wealth or redemption. It's about how one child's quiet strength reshaped the heart of a man who had everything except connection. If this story moved you, inspired you, or made you think twice about the people we pass by every day, don't keep it to yourself. Subscribe to our channel for more emotional, real-life inspired stories that challenge the way we see love, family, and second chances. And tell us in the comments, what would you have done if you were in Ethan's shoes? Share this video with someone who needs a reminder that sometimes we're not rescuing others, we're the ones being rescued. The marble floors of the Caldwell mansion echoed with each step of Ethan's polished Italian shoes. The grand foyer, flanked by towering abstract sculptures and framed by floor-to-ceiling windows, glowed in muted light. But for all its elegance, the space felt sterile, lifeless. "Cancel the charity dinner," Ethan said into his phone as he paused by the panoramic window overlooking the city. "Double the donation and send the check. I'm not attending." "Yes, Mr. Caldwell," his assistant stammered on the other end, too used to last-minute commands to question them. He ended the call without another word, tucking the phone back into his blazer pocket. His reflection in the glass stared back. Salt and pepper hair perfectly styled, a jawline so sharp it looked sculpted, and grey eyes that hadn't known softness in years. Behind him, the sound of claws tapping on stone floors. Approached. Titan, his massive German shepherd, stopped at his side. "Just you and me tonight," Ethan murmured, scratching behind the dog's ears. The kitchen was spotless, its chrome and glass surfaces gleaming like a showroom. Mrs. Alvarez, the housekeeper who had kept the mansion running for 15 years, was gathering her things. "Dinner's in the fridge, just heat it when you're ready," she said, slipping on her coat. Ethan nodded curtly, about to leave when something caught his eye. A small, framed photo on the counter, unintentionally left behind. "Is this your family?" The question slipped out before he could stop it. Mrs. Alvarez turned, eyes lighting up. "Yes, my grandson's birthday last week. 5 grandkids now." Ethan stared at the image longer than he meant to. Joy radiated from her face in the photo, surrounded by laughing children. "You should put that away," he said, voice turning cold again. "Lock up when you leave." Night fell like a blanket over the city. Ethan pulled. On his wool coat, clipped Titan's leash, and stepped into the November chill. Marlow Park wasn't far. He walked it every evening, appreciating its emptiness, solitude. Tonight, however, something gnawed at him. The family photo, the quiet joy in Mrs. Alvarez's voice, the echo of his own footsteps felt heavier than usual. Titan led the way, pulling slightly ahead. The dog paused often, nose twitching, ears alert. As they passed under an old oak tree, Titan suddenly stopped. There was a shape on the bench, tucked in the shadows. Titan stepped closer, ignoring Ethan's soft command to heel. A girl. She sat up as they approached, rubbing her eyes. She couldn't have been older than 9. Her coat was threadbare, her backpack clutched like a lifeline. "This isn't a hotel," Ethan snapped before he realized how harsh he sounded. The girl looked up, blinking. "I'm sorry, sir. I'm not causing trouble." Her voice was calm, oddly formal. Her cheeks were red with cold, her fingers trembling. "Where? Are your parents?" "My mom said to wait here. She'll be back soon." "How long have you been waiting?" She hesitated. 5 days. Ethan felt his breath catch. Titan had already laid his head on the girl's knee. She smiled, brushing her fingers over the dog's fur. "What's his name?" "Titan. He doesn't like strangers. Dogs usually like me." "When did you last eat?" Ethan asked. "Yesterday morning. I had a granola bar." The wind whipped past them, sharp and heartless. Ethan looked at her small frame, how she tried to sit upright despite the cold. He pulled out his phone, thumb hovering over the emergency call button. He should call the police. Let the system take over. But instead, he slid the phone back into his pocket. "Come with me," he said. "It's just for the night." The girl hesitated. "Okay." As they walked back toward the mansion, Titan trotting happily beside them, Ethan realized something he hadn't felt in years. He was nervous. The front door swung open with a whisper of hydraulics as Ethan stepped aside to let the girl enter first. She paused in the doorway, staring up at the grand chandelier that sparkled above them like a frozen constellation. Her eyes scanned the vast foyer, the sweeping staircase, the endless marble. "Whoa," she whispered. "This is like a museum." "It is a house," Ethan said, suddenly self-conscious. "You can leave your shoes on." Titan padded ahead, leading the way as if showing her around. The girl trailed after him, her backpack tight against her shoulders. "What's your name?" Ethan asked. "Sophie," she said. "Sophie Rivers." He nodded slowly. "I'm Ethan." She glanced up at him, surprised. "Just Ethan? Mr. Caldwell sounds too formal for someone eating my leftovers." A small smile tugged at her lips. "Okay, just Ethan." In the dining room, Ethan placed a reheated plate of pasta in front of her. It looked oversized on the massive table, but Sophie didn't comment. She ate carefully, slowly, as though making each bite last. "Do you like school?" Ethan asked, unsure how to fill the silence. "When I get to go," she replied. "We move a lot, but I like math." "Math?" he echoed. "Yeah, numbers always make sense, even when everything else doesn't." Ethan stared at her. It was something he might have said years ago. "What about your mom? Do you have her phone number?" Sophie shook her head. She couldn't afford a new one after hers broke. She just said to wait. Titan sat loyally by her side, his head resting on her feet. Later, while Sophie explored the guest room Ethan hastily prepared, he stepped into his office and dialed the non-emergency police line. "Officer Ramirez speaking. This is Ethan Caldwell. I found a young girl in Marlow Park. She says she's been waiting for her mother for 5 days. What's her name?" "Sophie Rivers." There was a pause. "We can contact social services to place her in the temporary care system. There's a shelter available tonight." Ethan frowned. He thought of the cold rooms. He'd visited once for a charity event. The impersonal beds, the flickering lights, the fear etched into the children's faces. "Is there another option? She can stay in a private residence temporarily if you're willing to file a guardian waiver until we locate her parent." Ethan hesitated. "I'll do it." That night, he brought Sophie a warm blanket and showed her how to use the smart light in the guest room. She took it all in with wide, thoughtful eyes. "You don't have to keep the lights off. It's safe here," Ethan said. She nodded, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "I know, Titan wouldn't stay if it wasn't." He turned to go, but her voice stopped him. "Ethan, why did you help me?" He paused at the doorway. "I don't know. Maybe because someone should have sooner." Unable to sleep, Ethan passed the guest room quietly. The door was ajar. Inside, Sophie slept curled on her side. Titan sprawled beside her like a sentry. Her backpack sat slumped in the corner. Ethan hesitated, then picked it up and gently unzipped the top. Among notebooks and pencils, he found a small photo tucked inside a worn envelope. A woman smiled back at him from the picture. She had long, dark hair, tired eyes, and a familiar expression that twisted something deep inside him. Elena. His breath caught. The photo slipped from his fingers. Elena Rivers. Sophie stirred in her sleep. Ethan backed away, heart pounding. Everything he thought he knew had just changed. Ethan sat in his home office. The photo of Elena now resting on his desk beside a closed laptop. He hadn't slept. The quiet hum of early morning filled the room, broken only by Titan's soft breathing at his feet. He picked up his phone and scrolled through his contacts until he found the name, Sarah Kim. She answered after 2 rings. "Mr. Caldwell, it's early. I need a background trace," Ethan said. "Elena Rivers, possibly an alias. I think her name used to be Elena Hartman. I need to know everything." Employment, residence, medical records if possible. Sarah was silent for a beat. Is this personal or business? It started as neither. It's now both. I need answers, Sarah. Send me the photo. I'll get started. Sophie was already at the kitchen table when Ethan came downstairs. Mrs. Alvarez had returned early and made pancakes. Sophie was focused on a Sudoku puzzle she'd found in the newspaper. You like puzzles? Ethan asked. A lot. I usually do them with Mom. She says they keep our brains warm. He smiled faintly. Smart woman. Sophie looked up. Do you think she's okay? Ethan paused. I hope so. I'm doing everything I can to find her. She nodded, as though sensing the truth in his voice. Titan nudged her side, and she gave him a scratch behind the ears. Ethan watched her, the way she concentrated, the way she squinted slightly like Elena used to, and the way she approached numbers with a kind of reverent clarity. A chill ran through him. Could she be his? By mid-afternoon, Sarah called. She changed her name 9 years ago to Elena Rivers, she said. Before that, Elena Hartman, your ex from college. Ethan stood in stunned silence. I need to see her. There's more. She was admitted to County General 6 days ago. Construction accident, no ID, no insurance. They logged her as a Jane Doe. I confirmed identity through the photo. Ethan's jaw clenched. Which construction site? East Side Meridian Project. His blood ran cold. That's mine. County General reeked of antiseptic and old coffee. Ethan signed in at the front desk, presented ID and followed a nurse through dim corridors until they reached the ICU. He froze at the doorway. Elena lay unconscious, a bruise blooming across her temple, tubes in her arm, a monitor beeping steadily. Her face was thinner but still hers. Time hadn't dulled the sharp curve of her cheekbones or the shape of her lips. Her dark hair fanned across the pillow like a halo edged with grey. A nurse entered. You know her. We were close once. She's been in and out of consciousness. Keep saying Sophie. Ethan stepped closer, drawn by a need he hadn't expected. Elena, he whispered, reaching for her hand. I found her. Sophie. She's safe. She's with me. No response. But he didn't let go. He returned home with a stack of discharge papers and medical notes the hospital had let him photograph. Back in his office, he spread them across the desk. Among them, a form listing Sophie Rivers as Elena's next of kin. Sophie's date of birth. Ethan did the math. It was 9 months after their breakup. He stood slowly, as if the room itself had begun to tilt. She hadn't told him. He never knew. He stared at Sophie's name on the form. Daughter. A word that suddenly meant more than all the wealth in his towers. The morning sun filtered through the tall windows of the dining room, illuminating the untouched breakfast at Ethan's place setting. Across the table, Sophie happily munched on toast, humming under her breath while sketching something on a napkin. Ethan watched her in silence. His thoughts buzzed with the impossible reality. She was his daughter. The resemblance had always been there, but now the evidence stood on paper, in hospital files, in Elena's last name, and in every small gesture Sophie made that echoed someone he once loved. Ethan, she asked, catching him staring. He blinked. Sorry, I was just thinking. You always think so hard. Mrs. Alvarez says you look like you're solving the world's problems. He managed a smile. Maybe just one small piece of it. He couldn't tell her, not yet, not like this. Not without Elena. Later that afternoon, Sophie found him in the library, seated with a journal open but untouched. She flopped into the armchair opposite him, Titan trotting in and curling up at her feet. You've been weird all day, she said plainly. Ethan looked up, caught off guard. Weird? How so? Quieter than usual. Kind of sad. Is it about my mom? He sighed. Partly. I'm worried. Is she going to wake up? The doctors are hopeful, but they don't know when. Sophie nodded. She always comes back, she promised. Ethan swallowed. I believe her. She leaned forward. You know her, don't you? He hesitated. Yes, a long time ago. Did you love her? The question hit like a blow. He nodded slowly. Yes, I did. Sophie smiled, satisfied with that truth. Then she probably still loves you too. That night, after Sophie went to bed, Ethan returned to her backpack. He had avoided rifling through it again, feeling it was a breach of trust. But now, driven by both guilt and longing, he carefully unzipped the smaller compartment. Inside was a worn, leather-bound journal. Pages of Sophie's childlike handwriting filled the front half. Doodles, stories, math games. But as he flipped toward the back, a different script took over. Familiar, flowing, Elena's. He read slowly. I saw Ethan Caldwell on the news today. His company bought another tower. I wonder if he ever thinks of what we left behind. Of me. Of the daughter he never met. I never told Sophie who her father is. Not because I didn't want to, but because I didn't believe he would care or even remember me. Ethan closed the journal, throat tight. She had tried. She had thought of him. She had protected Sophie from disappointment, from him. The next day, Ethan stood beside Elena's hospital bed, the scent of antiseptic sharp in his nostrils. The machines beeped a slow rhythm beside her. He reached for her hand, warm but still unmoving. Elena, I know now. About Sophie. About everything. He paused, gathering the storm in his chest. I should have been there. You tried to reach me and I never let you in. I didn't know. But I see her now, and she is everything. She's bright and kind and stronger than I ever was. And she's mine, our daughter. His voice cracked. I'm sorry for leaving, for not seeing what mattered. If you can hear me, please forgive me. A faint movement. Ethan froze. Elena's fingers twitched against his palm. Then again, he stepped closer, his voice trembling. Elena. Her eyelids fluttered, lips parting just slightly. The monitor beeped faster. Doctor! Ethan called, slamming the call button with his free hand. Hours later, after tests and cautious approvals, a nurse gently led Sophie into the room. Ethan knelt beside her. She's awake, but tired. Be gentle. Sophie nodded solemnly, then walked slowly to the bedside. Eleanor, now propped up, slightly by pillows, turned her head and smiled weakly. Hi, Mom, Sophie whispered, eyes brimming. Elena's hand lifted slowly. My brave girl. Sophie climbed onto the edge of the bed and hugged her as gently as she could, sobbing softly. Ethan turned away, his own eyes burning. Elena looked at him, holding Sophie close. Their eyes met. No words yet, just understanding. A promise passed in silence. Later, as Sophie drifted to sleep in the chair beside the bed, Elena reached for Ethan's hand. You found her? Yes. And you stayed? He nodded. I'm not leaving again. She smiled faintly. Good, because she needs you. And so do I. Eleanor's recovery progressed quickly over the following days. Still confined to the hospital bed, she now sat up unaided and engaged in longer conversations. But with Ethan, those talks stayed polite, careful. Something unsaid hovered between them. He brought her fresh flowers each morning, read aloud from Sophie's favorite books each evening. But their shared history created an invisible wall. You don't have to do all this, Elena said one morning, watching him smooth the blanket over her legs. I want to, Ethan replied simply. Because you feel guilty or because you still care? He paused, then looked her in the eye. Both. Elena glanced away, blinking slowly. It's been a long time, Ethan. And yet here we are. Her voice was soft, tired. Yes, here we are. By the end of the week, doctors cleared Elena for discharge. Ethan arrived at the hospital with an overnight bag and a ride home. Sophie danced around the room with excitement, but when Elena saw the car waiting outside the Caldwell mansion, her steps faltered. I can't move into that house, Ethan. You and Sophie belong there. I need to work again. To provide, we'll find a small place. Why struggle when you don't have to? Because I need to stand on my own, and Sophie needs to see that. They argued in hushed tones outside the guest house. Titan sat between them, tail swishing anxiously. You think this is about pride? Elena said, her voice cracking. But it's about identity. I've raised her alone for 9 years. You don't get to swoop in and erase that. Ethan stepped back, stunned. I don't want to erase anything. I want to build something new with you. The next morning, Sophie stood at the kitchen island, a folded piece of paper in her hands. "I made something," she said. Ethan and Elena exchanged wary glances as she unfolded a hand-drawn family contract with 3 signatures boxes and terms written in colored pencil. "We can live in the guest house," Sophie declared. "It's close, but still our space. We each get our own room. You both stop whisper fighting. Titan sleeps in the hallway." Elena laughed despite herself. Ethan knelt to read it with mock seriousness. "I believe in these terms," he said. Elena looked at Sophie, then at Ethan. Her shoulders dropped. "Okay, trial basis." Sophie beamed. "See? Problem solved." Over the next several weeks, Ethan transformed. He shortened his work hours, traded conference calls for carpool duty, learned how to braid hair poorly, and made pancakes, burnt but edible. Mrs. Alvarez, watching from the sidelines, marveled at the difference. "You look lighter," she commented. "Maybe I am," Ethan replied, glancing at Sophie bent over her homework at the kitchen table. Each night, he read to her, listened to her worries, sat quietly when she missed her old life. And Eleanor, she slowly eased into the new rhythm, watching Ethan cautiously hopeful. One crisp December night, Ethan drove the family across town. "Where are we going?" Eleanor asked. "You'll see." They pulled up to a gated construction site. Floodlights lit a partially completed building. A sign read, "The Sophie Caldwell Community Center." Elena gasped. Sophie clapped a hand over her mouth. "You named it after her? After both of you? This was supposed to be luxury condos. I changed the plan. Housing, job training, after-school programs. For families like yours, like ours." Elena turned to him, eyes wide. "You're changing. I already have. Because of you. Because of her." As they stood under the stars, Sophie twirling beneath the lights, Elena slipped her hand into his. Ethan looked down, heart full. Maybe staying wasn't about obligation. Maybe it was about love finally given the space to grow. The Caldwell mansion no longer echoed. It laughed. Children's drawings filled the refrigerator door. A forgotten toy rolled under the couch. The scent of cinnamon and baking apples lingered in the air. The house, once a sterile showcase, now breathed with life. Ethan stood by the window, watching Sophie chase Titan across the lawn. Her hair streamed behind her like a ribbon, her laugh peeling through the crisp winter air. Elena, curled on the couch with a novel, glanced up and smiled. "You're going to be late," she teased. Ethan turned, holding up a lunch bag. Sophie said her sandwich must not touch her. Apple slices or the world ends. "She gets that from you." He paused, softening. "I hope she gets everything from you." Eleanor closed her book. "She gets the best from both of us." After school, Ethan suggested a walk. Titan led the way through Marlow Park, sniffing familiar corners. They reached the bench, the one where Ethan first found Sophie, asleep and forgotten by the world. Now it bore a small bronze plaque, "Where lost souls find their way home." Sophie climbed onto the bench, hugging her knees. "Do you think Mom would have found me if you hadn't?" Ethan sat beside her. "I don't know. Maybe. But I think the truth is, we all found each other." She nodded thoughtfully. "I like that." Eleanor joined them, her gloved hands slipping into Ethan's. He turned to her. "There's something I've been waiting to do." Snow had begun to fall. Light, delicate flakes landed on Elena's scarf. Ethan stood, reaching into his coat pocket and pulling out a small box. Sophie gasped, barked once as if on cue. "Elena Hartman," Ethan began, his voice steady. "I walked away once. I chose ambition over love, fear over family, and I paid for it with silence, with loneliness. But this past year, you and Sophie taught me what it means to live." He opened the box, revealing a simple, elegant ring. "I'm not asking out of guilt or obligation. I'm asking because I love you, because I want to build something with you, for real this time. Will you marry me?" Elena's eyes filled with tears. She covered her mouth. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, Ethan." Sophie launched into his arms. "You asked. You really asked." Ethan laughed, hugging her tight. Months later, Caldwell Enterprises looked nothing like it had before. Worker safety policies had changed. A scholarship fund launched. The company began building mixed-income housing in under-resourced neighborhoods. Elena now ran the Harper Foundation. Housed inside the Sophie Caldwell Community Center, she provided legal aid, childcare, and emergency support for families in crisis. Her lived experience made her a force of nature. Ethan joined her every weekend, offering mentorship and funding. He no longer craved headlines, only impact. At company town halls, he spoke not of profit, but of purpose. "We don't just build towers anymore," he said. "We build homes, communities, we build lives." Back at the mansion, the dining table was full. Mrs. Alvarez brought out a second pie. Sophie bragged about a school project. Titan snored at someone's feet. Laughter floated through every room. Ethan looked around. This house, once a fortress, had become a haven, a testament. Later, by the fireplace, Eleanor leaned against him. "Do you ever think about that night? Every day. What would you have done if you hadn't gone on that walk?" He kissed her temple. "Then I would still be rich, and completely, hopelessly poor." Sophie called out, "Come help with the marshmallows." Ethan rose, pulling Elena to her feet. They walked into the kitchen as a family, no longer broken pieces from the past, but something whole and found. What if the child you saved from the cold turned out to be your own? What if the woman whose heart you broke years ago had been silently walking through the doors of your empire, hoping you'd notice? The girl on the playground bench is not just a story of chance encounters, it's a haunting question about the cost of ambition, the quiet power of a child's hope, and whether it's ever too late to choose love over legacy. Have you ever missed a life-changing moment because you were chasing something else? Let us know in the comments. If you were in Ethan's place, what would you have done? If stories like this move you, if you believe in second chances, in the power of transformation, and in narratives that restore your faith in humanity, make sure to subscribe to our channel. Share this video with someone who needs to be reminded that even the coldest hearts can find their way home. More emotional stories, powerful characters, and thought-provoking questions await you in our upcoming episodes. Tap the bell so you never miss a moment.